How long could the air raids continue, and what are the chances for negotiations? Joining us with some perspective is Cedric Leighton. He's a retired colonel in the U.S. Air Force and a welcome visitor to our show. Let's recap. The air operation was stopped. It started again. Saudi ambassador to the U.S. said it will continue to stop a Houthi advance. So where do things stand?
Well, I think they're very fluid, Elaine, and here's the problem. The Saudis have achieved, or think they have achieved, some limited goals through their use of air power. But the problem with air power is that it doesn't necessarily affect things on the ground as much as the Saudis would like. There's an inherent limitation, especially if you have limited targeting capabilities. And so what we're seeing here is the application of modern air power without all of the intelligence, all of the targeting capabilities that are normally associated, at least in the U.S., with an air campaign, at least a modern air campaign. So that's the problem. They've got the means partially, but they're achieving them piecemeal, and it's taking them a lot longer to achieve their political goals. They may never actually achieve those political goals through air power alone.
But obviously there had to have been some dealing to get to the point they were, say, 24 hours ago. The talk of a new vice president, the releasing of Yemen's defense minister. So what do you think is happening behind the scenes diplomatically now?
Well, I think now there are a lot of discussions. The Houthis have indicated that they want to go back to the negotiating table. They want to actually have some further discussions with the Saudis and the previous Yemeni government. So there's a lot of maneuvering. A lot of it is backroom maneuvering. But what will probably happen is that they will continue to do this. The Saudis will apply some more pressure. There'll be another break in the bombing campaign. They'll talk. If the talks are not successful from the Saudi point of view, there'll be some more air campaign activity that will go on, and that's what you'll see probably in the next few days.
We saw President Hadi make an address. He is currently in Saudi Arabia. What are the chances that we will see him back in power in Yemen?
I give it less than a 50% chance because there are so many other factors, and the Saudis may have to find a compromise candidate, somebody who is potentially acceptable to the Houthis to come in and actually rule the country. But here's another possibility, and that is the possibility of partition. Yemen was a partition state for many, many years up until the early 1990s, and that could happen again. And it could, instead of being a two-way partition, it could be a three-way partition. And that's something that the Saudis may decide they could risk, but they may also decide it would be too dangerous to do that. It all depends on what they decide in Riyadh, and we don't really know that yet.
And that was something that was even discussed before this air campaign started a month ago. Iran is also speaking out at one point, calling the end of the airstrikes a positive step, but it still didn't really have too many kind words for Saudi Arabia.
Yes, I think that the Iranians and the Saudi Arabians are basically in what amounts to a Cold War. We tend to, in the West, we tend to look at this as a Sunni-Shia divide. It's much more complex than that. There are many Shia that live in Saudi Arabia. There are many Shia that live in other parts of the Arab world. So it's not as neat a division as many would have us believe. But the fact of the matter is that Iran wants to be a hegemon in the Middle East, at least in their part of the Middle East, and the Saudis do not want that. And so from a pure geopolitical standpoint, what you're seeing is a situation where the Saudis are stepping up to counter the Iranians. They're doing so much more overtly than they have in the past, and I think there's going to be a lot more to that chapter in their relationship in the next few weeks and few months than we've seen in recent years.